Thank you for joining us as we elevate the Black entrepreneur experience by interviewing CEOs, thought leaders, innovative thinkers, and Black entrepreneurs across the globe. I'm your host, Dr. Frances Richards. Do you want customers that feel like friends and raving fans that are connected to your business long term? We're excited to welcome to the mic business strategist, brand visionary, market disruptor, Carrie Thomas-Omáur. I've given our audience such a brief bio. Why don't you fill in the gaps and share with our audience what you'd like them to know about you and your business?
Yeah, so my name is Carrie Thomas-Omáur. I actually started my business July of 2019. And I always like to say that was my catalyst moment of where everything that had happened in my life all came to fruition. So a little bit about my background. I actually was adopted when I was 6 months old. I found out at 6 years old. Of course, we have those big brothers that are like, "You're not my real sister anyway." And I tried to brush it off, but it was my cousins that were looking around and they were like, "Oh no, you have spilled the beans." So I remember running down to my mom and dad and asking them. Bam said I'm not his real sister anyway. And my parents are old school, so they had the roll top desk. And they walked over to the roll top desk and they pulled out the papers and they told me that I was adopted. And I always like to say that moment for me was this catalyst or like this flip that switched inside of me that made me feel like I had to earn my spot and earn my place. So I like to say that's when I truly became a performer and I truly started to live my life for other people's happiness and always trying to figure out how could I be liked? How could I make sure that I was always picked? So I went through my life kind of really going through that mask that a lot of people have of like, well, I want to be liked. I want to please other people. And I remember right when I was getting ready to start my business, I kept realizing that I kept having these cycles of amazing highs and amazing lows. And now looking back, one of the things that I like to say is like that was that internal discord, because there was a version of me that wanted to put myself out there, but there was also a version of me that was scared because of societal standards and wanting to be liked in that need. And I remember having that moment of like, I know that there's something else for me, but I have to get out of this cycle. How do I get out of this cycle? And I got out of this cycle by asking for help. So I asked for help. And luckily I have amazing best friends who really supported me through this process. But one of the things that happened from that is I built a business that I have now to show people that you don't have to change. You don't have to be anything different than who you are to be able to build a business that's aligned. And actually determining what are the things that are true and core to you is actually the crust of being able to build an aligned business. So that's now what we do for our clients. Because I was like, I never want anybody to feel like I have to dim their life just because of social standards and social norms.
Who's your ideal client?
My ideal client, I like to call them unboxable visionaries. Our clients normally have a lot of different passions and they never can figure out how to put it together in a way that makes sense for society. And they come to me because they're like, Carrie, like I want to do this and I want to do it this way, but everybody else says it doesn't make sense or it's not right. And I'm like, well, actually it does make sense and it is right. And let's do it together.
There are so many brands and businesses, Carrie, that dominate. Talk about a brand or a business that dominate that you admire and why.
A brand in the business that dominates, I would say, I'll use one that we're very all familiar with, and that would be Apple. And the thing that I always loved about Apple is they stay true to their core audience in spite of everybody else being obsessed with them. So I always like to say that they had this thing of understanding the Raven fan architecture. So they focused on the 1% of people that would actually stand outside and wait for the phones to come out, stand outside and wait for the new iPads to come out. Those are the people that they market to. Those are the people that they communicated with. And they knew that those 1% would be so obnoxious. And so like, hey, did you get the new iPhone? I got the new iPhone. Did you get the new iPhone? That they would be able to spread that message to other people and be able to create that wave to their actual target audience.
Fill in the blank. Thank you, pandemic, because.
Thank you, pandemic, because I feel like a lot of times it allowed the world to slow down. I always say that before the pandemic, people were so focused on features and effects and what was included in things, and not really asking yourself, like, how did it actually make me feel? And I feel that the pandemic actually created an experience where now consumers are asking, how does this make me feel? How am I choosing to spend my money in a more conscious way rather than just trying to see if I can get the biggie Mac with all the goodies, rather than saying, hey, I'm actually going to go to this more expensive place because I understand that this experience is going to be way better.
Let's have, I like to start with an attitude of gratitude. And I want you to have what I call a thank fest. And I want you to have at it and thank those people or situations that have made you who you are.
Yeah, like I would say for me, I would love to, like, I always like to say, like, I would thank my birth mom with the first person I would thank, because she made a choice that knew that she couldn't take care of me to give me to a family that could. With that, I got my mom and my mom, my dad, and my brother. And even though like in the moment I was super sad that he told me I was adopted, that for me actually created where I am today. My dad is still my hero. He passed away in March of 2019, but my dad actually is the reason why I helped the Unboxable Visionaries, because he literally at his funeral, there were so many people that came up and said, had a conversation with Sergeant Major, had a conversation with Paul, and he changed my life. And I remember being at that funeral, asking myself, what would happen if my dad had someone that believed in him? What would have happened if my dad had someone that saw his mission, that saw his message? How many more people could have stood up at his funeral and talked about the impact that he made? So that for me was my catalyst to say, hey, I want to help Unboxable Visionaries who want to make an impact, who want to put stuff out into the world. So I'm grateful for my dad. I'm grateful for all the failures that I had, because it helped me to get to success faster.
Sorry for the loss of your dad. And how are you making impact daily?
I make impact daily by truly, like, I like to say, like, I'm a care bear through and through. Like, I love just making sure people are happy, making sure people are good. I check in on people. And I would say my biggest impact daily is in my business, because I help people shine their light. I help people not get out of the shadows and stop hiding in the world, and actually put their message out there so they can create ripples in the world.
I like that. Speaking of creating ripples in the world, legacy, when it's all said and done, how do you want to be remembered?
I would love to be remembered by people at my funeral saying, Carrie helped me show up. There's so many of our clients that we meet at the beginning and I'm like, oh my gosh, y'all are going to change the world. We just have to get you out there. We have a client right now, his name is Belden. And I remember when he came to me, he wasn't trying to do social media, but he had this mission that he wanted to give the world their health back. And I told him, I was like, okay, I want you to do short form video. I want you to start creating content. And literally within our 6 months that we've been together, he has probably touched over 10 million people's lives through his short form content, because we actually put him out there. So now he is creating those ripples. He is giving the world his health back because he started showing up.
Thank you for that. What is the biggest takeaway that you want this conversation to have? And to our audience? What do you want them to leave with?
One of the biggest takeaways that I like to tell people is everything you need to be successful is already inside of you. All you have to do is let that spark, that little voice that wants to come out, catch fire, and then magic happens.
What was that aha moment or that story that you knew that you were going to be successful?
It's funny. I think I knew I was going to be successful in middle school. Um, it was funny. I was watching CNN Heroes, and there was this woman who had this organization called Mighty Nepal, where she was like 70 years old, and she was like busting down like doors to like help people with human trafficking. And I remember in this moment, I was looking at her and I was like, I know that I'm meant for more. And I know that I'm meant to do something big. I was like, at the moment, I was like, I don't know what it is, but I know that I'm meant to do something big. And there might be, and I remember I was like, there's going to be a day where I'll be on CNN Heroes for helping people.
Have you made it there yet?
Not yet,
That's
but
your
I'm
goal?
working on it. Yeah, that's the goal.
Talk to a younger Carrie. What advice would you give to a younger you?
I think the advice that I would give to a younger me would say, your uniqueness is your gifts, and trust it, and actually live full out.
Someone's listening and they're saying, okay, Carrie, how do you find your unique you, your authentic self?
So a lot of times I'll tell people the first thing that I like to start with is asking yourself these big two questions. So the first two questions is, what is a true impact that I want to make unselfishly? What is that true impact? And the second question is, who are the people that I want to serve? And understanding what is that true impact that I want to make, and who are the people I want to serve, it starts laying the foundation of your passions and your purpose. And then in that, I actually created a quiz called the Brand Soul Quiz. And in that, it helps you determine what is your innate motivator and what is your decision lens. Because a lot of times it's so easy to say like, what inspires me, what pushes me. There's a lot of stuff that pushes a lot of people, but there's that one thing that I say that pushes you when things are tough, when things are exciting, when you can't really think about it. What is that motivator? And when you can actually align with that motivator, and you look at those big two, that's where you find like your purpose, passion, activities, and environments and services that you create.
What is your zone of genius?
Oh man. I would say my zone of genius is 30,000 foot viewing. A lot of our clients come to me because they can't figure out how to get from A to Z. And I look at A to Z at all times. That's kind of how I look at everything. So I can give them that 30,000 foot view and say, okay, this is how we need to get here. This is some of the hurdles that we're going to experience. But as long as we kind of move it this way, we'll be fine, and things like that. And then we'll go and run and do the run, and they'll be like, oh, wow, Carrie, everything you said is happening. How did you know? I'm like, I know I can see the A to Z. I can see it.
Speaking of A to Z, what is your A to Z?
For me, my A to Z, I would say, is our end goal has always been to show people what's possible when they step into their power and step into their light. Like, that's our Z. And then with that, we have our beginning part where we have our Brand Soul Quiz, where we show people that you are the power of your business. You are the spark. You are the secret sauce of your business. And when you can double down on that, magic can happen. From there is helping you create your offers and your services that align with that vision and mission of who you are. And then it's asking yourself, what are your visibility strategies and techniques that help you see what happens when you step into your power, step into your light. So when we get to that point of you're in your power, you're in your light, you're like, oh my gosh, Carrie, I can't believe this is happening. Like, I feel like I can do all things. I'm like, and you can, and we're going to do it together. So that's why we have clients that literally have been with us for 5-6 years, because they're like, we're just in it with you.
Talk about your top 2 mentors or influencers and what lessons did they teach you?
I would definitely say my dad would be one of my top mentors. And I remember there was this was when I was in college, and I have a degree in human psychology. And I was taking this course called The Art of Being, and a little bit about my dad. He was in the military for 26 years. He grew up in Atlanta, and then during pretty much the he literally lived down the street from Martin Luther King, all during the civil rights era. So he very much had this mentality of do what you have to do to make it, regardless of what it is. So I remember sitting there with him one day. We were on the porch, and I was telling him, he was like, well, Carrie, what are you going to do with this degree? Because I feel like I'm spending a lot of money on this degree, and I don't know what you're doing, especially with this art of being. What is this? And I'm like, well, Dad, I want to do something. I want to do what I love. I want to be able to wake up every morning and know that I'm doing what I love. And I remember sitting there with him, and he told me that wasn't realistic. And he was like, Carrie, that's not realistic. You have to do what it takes to actually survive, to pay your bills and things like that. And he was like, there might be times where you don't like what you do, but you still have to do it. And I remember saying, I was like, well, Daddy, that won't be me. And he was like, well, we'll see. Because my dad, he was like, well, he used to always say, I'm Missouri, I'm the show me state, so show me. That was his thing. So I remember I was at this job, and I was like, I got to a point where I didn't like it. And I remember quitting. And I remember even in our business, we had hit 45K consecutive months, reoccurring months. And I remember looking around at the business that I created, and I was like, I can't live out of alignment, especially when my dad said, oh, you want to do what you love every day? Show me. And I was like, right now, I don't love what I'm doing. So I tore the business down at 45K reoccurring months and started it all over. And remembering those moments and remembering what my dad said, it was just that alignment piece for me, because I knew that as long as I stayed with waking up every morning, knowing what I'm doing is what I love, will always keep me in alignment. The second one, this was around the time I had just started my business. His name is Alex Sharpton. And I was listening to one of his podcasts, and I was probably in business now about 4 or 5 months. And he had made a comment, the reason why you don't have the business you want is because you're not the person for the business. And I remember him saying it, and I was like, first of all, don't come for me. Sir. And then I was like, I really sat with it, and I was like, I'm not the person for the business. And I was like, how can I become the person for the business? So I literally started to live my life. At this point, my goal was to be a 6-figure entrepreneur. So I started to live my life as a 6-figure entrepreneur. What would a six-figure entrepreneur Carrie do? How would she act? How would she run her business? How would she do these things to be able to be a 6-figure entrepreneur? And literally within 5 months, we hit 6 figures. But it was because I pushed myself and I put myself in that mentality of that 6-figure entrepreneur. And what was super amazing is last year, in October of 2022, we were able to have a conversation on a thing that I call Curetober. And I told him about that story about how it was like, you called me out and I was a little salty with you for a good couple minutes, but I appreciate that push that you gave me at the beginning.
So did you know him personally?
No, I didn't. I was like, but I felt like he knew me though. I felt like he was coming straight for me. I was like, sir. So now to be able to know him and to have that full circle moment was really amazing.
That is an awesome story. Thank you for sharing that.
Of course.
I want you to have a monologue. I want you to name this person, living or not. This person has inspired you so much. What are you saying to this person, and who is this person?
I guess I have to go back to my daddy. It's funny. There's times even now that I'll talk to him and I'll be like, Dad, like my dad always had this layer of optimism, even though like he was very structured. I even went to military college because I wanted to be like my dad. I was like, I want to do that stuff. And I would tell him thank you. And I would tell him thank you for pushing me. My dad always said that mediocrity doesn't live in our family. So he was like, if you want to be mediocre, maybe you want to move across the street. He was the one that pushed me to want to always be better, want to have that competitive advantage, want to learn more. And one of the things he used to tell me, even when I was in middle school, he was like, you only know what you know. And he was like, and I'm not going to tell you, so you have to go find the answers. So like literally like every little question, he made us go to encyclopedia to learn it and figure it out. And then he would come back, he was like, so what do you know now? And I'm like, well, blah, 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 daddy. But that has been my push. Like I haven't, even as an entrepreneur, I never really signed up for a lot of courses. I went and I studied and I learned the process because I was like, I don't need to learn from these people because their information is somewhere. They got their information from somebody else. They studied it. So let me study it. Let me understand the concepts and actually like recreate them for myself. And I got that from my dad. He always pushed me. So I would like to say, Daddy, thank you. I definitely wouldn't be here without you. Every day I strive and I push myself to live up to the legacy that you have given of being good to people and like being able to correct those ripples. He always used to say, if I'm good to somebody else, then they can be good to somebody else. And then we create a world where everybody's good to each other.
Did your dad, Carrie, get an opportunity to see the success of your business?
He didn't.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. Give, get. What do you want to give and what do you want to get?
I would love to give the world inspiration. It was funny. I never knew that like people, like especially when I was getting started, I never knew that people were watching me. So like when people would come like, hey Carrie, like I was watching your stuff. I was like, you watching my stuff? Like really? But I remember there was this woman, she messaged me and there was this reel that I did. And literally I was jumping up in the air and my feet never touched the ground. Like, so I was just like, ding, 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 ding. It was the funniest thing. And it was very something that I would do, but I was always really scared to kind of put out to the world. So I posted it and I was like, I've been living like me and it feels so amazing. And I remember her messaging me and she was like, Carrie, like, I just want you to know that you inspire me so much. And if I can just do 10% of what you do, I know I'll be okay. And I'm like, really? Just 10? I was like, y'all think I do a lot? I feel like I'm like, especially I feel like I'm like struggling every day. So for you to say that, like really like was crazy for me. But that has always now been my push. It's like, I want to keep inspiring. I want to keep showing up because I know if I'm showing up, if I'm doing a lot and my people are just doing that 10%, then that's going to be way more than enough for them to be able to share their light and shine their light to the world. What would I like to get? It's funny, I always like to say that my clients probably help me more than I help them a lot of times because they push me outside of my comfort zone. They force me to look at things that I might not have looked at, and I learn from them. So I would like to say just more amazing clients and more amazing people that come into my life that share with me and teach me things that I don't know now.
What do you need right now that you don't have to move the needle forward in your business?
What do I need right now? It's funny. I was like, I need, because I have like a virtual assistant. I have like a operations manager. But one of the jokes that I tell them is like, I need someone that like sits next to me every day and just is like my like at home person where I could be like, hey, person, like I need this, or oh my God, like because I like to talk. So it's funny, my team, they'll just be on the call with me sometimes. I'm like, I don't need anything, just need you around. And they'll just stay on with me. So I would love to have just someone right here sometimes just to help me with those quick things that would like that sometimes slow me down, that if I could just give to somebody in the moment would just be amazing.
And what have you not done that you dream about doing that you would like to do?
So right now I would say personally, because I feel like some of the big things that I wanted to do that I was scared to do, I actually am doing right now. So we launched a podcast, my podcast, Visibility Playground. And then we're launching our planner, which is like my first technically book. And that was one of the things that I was like nervous about. So that's done. So the next thing I would say that I want to do that I haven't done would be to do like 6 months in like Europe and just like hang out and work and just be Parisian for, for a couple of months.
And how can we help you and your business right now? What can we do to support your business?
I would say share the message. Like if you know people, if somebody here is listening to this and they're like, hey, I know somebody who's struggling with visibility or struggling to put themselves out there, send them my way. Like that's what I want to do. Like I really want to see more people step into their light, because when they do it, it's just so powerful. And I always like to tell our clients, like, I'm never going to throw you in the sun, but I will toss you all up in the shade. And then and then there's a day that you look around and you're like, you know what, it's actually kind of cold in the shade. I'm ready to go into the sun. And when our clients go into the sun, it's always the most like beautiful moment for me, because it's like they're doing it on their own and they're just so confident in it. And it's because I tossed them into the shade.
I like that. That's awesome. Share a story around the first wound that you experienced with a boss or a leader.
So it's funny. When I was in corporate, so I used to work for Subway corporate, and one of my immediate supervisor had told me that I was too bubbly and too happy, and I needed to be more professional. Even though all the people at corporate loved me, even though like his boss and the boss above him loved me, even though like all of my franchisees were obsessed with me, he said I was too happy and too bubbly and I need to be more professional. So he even put it in my report. He was like, this is what you need to work on. You need to be more professional. You're too bubbly. So I remember we had a meeting with one of my franchisees. And I was like, all right, well, he keeps saying I need to be more bubbly. He had warned me and was like, hey, so we have this meeting tomorrow with Salim is going to be there, and then my boss is going to be there. So I really need you to really put your professional foot forward. And I was like, okay. So I remember putting my professional foot forward, and I went in there very like him. I just like embodied his personality, and I did the meeting. And after the meeting, my franchisee first was like, "What is wrong with you? Are you okay?" And the part that was more satisfying was when his boss came up to me and said, "Hey, Carrie, are you okay? Like, I just felt like you weren't yourself today." And I told him, I was like, "Well, Charlie told me I needed to be more professional." And he was like, "More professional?" He was like, "You're really professional." He's like, "You're just happy." And I just kept sitting with that. I was like, there is my immediate supervisor that feels like I'm too bubbly. Like, how could I work under this person? How could I keep being under, even though everybody else didn't feel that way? The person that is the one that does my evaluation, does my stuff, says I'm too bubbly. So the best moment is I actually left corporate February 4th of 2020, right before COVID. And about 6 months later, Charlie called me and he was like, "Hey, Carrie, just checking in." I'm like, "Oh, yeah, doing my own thing." And he's like, "How's things going?" I'm like, "Things are going great." And he was like, "Well, I actually left Subway. Still trying to kind of find my thing. Like, are you looking for someone to help in sales?" And I was like, "Actually, we're really looking for bubbly people, and I don't think you are that." I was like, "I'm really looking for bubbly people." And it was funny because, of course, he was an old white man. Um, but it was like the perfect moment. I was like, "See, God, thank you for giving me this full circle moment. I needed this."
I love that story. Thank you, Carrie. If you could spend time or have dinner with one person, living or not, who would that person be? And what conversation would you have with that person?
Okay, so when I was younger, I used to tell my mom that Condoleezza Rice was my birth mom.
Why Condoleezza Rice?
I always just looked up to her. Like, I just felt like she was just so amazing. I still feel like she's so amazing. I feel like she was able to break a glass ceiling in a place where she was the only one there and she was able to dominate. And I always just felt like I wanted that. I wanted to be like that. And it was funny because so I was born in Connecticut, and Condoleezza Rice was actually in Connecticut when I was born, and I was born in New Haven, and she was at Yale. So I was like, "See, mom, it just makes sense. Condi's my mom." So I would love to meet Condoleezza Rice, tell her the story about how I thought she was my birth mother for multiple years of life, and just like really just like hang out with her.
That is amazing. Let's take a snapshot over the last 30 days. What was your biggest win?
Oh man, biggest win of the last 30 days. So I moved to Denver March 4th of 2022. So I've been here a year now. Um, and one of the things that I said to myself after I got over my funk of like realizing that I'm in Denver by myself, I said myself that I would build a community and I would build relationships here that I hadn't built in Atlanta. So last month, about 2 weeks ago, I created, me and one of my friends, Lauren, actually created this organization called Inspire Her. And we had our first event. And for me to be, it was a paid event, about $25, so nothing crazy, but they had to pull out their credit card. We had about 20 people register for the event and came to the event. And for me, that was really big because when I came to Denver, I knew no one. I knew nobody. I had no friends. I had no connections. And truly within about 6 to 8 months, I was able to build a community, build people, and also have 20 people pull out their credit card and say, "Hey, I want to come to this event."
And what was that story around moving to Denver from Atlanta?
So I I would say when I became an entrepreneur, I really started to focus on self-development and really stepping into like the truest form of Carrie. And I remember one of the last things that I was reading, they were saying that to truly make a true shift, you have to sometimes change your environment because your environment sometimes won't allow you to truly make the change. And I was noticing that even though I was around like my mom and my niece and my nephews and my friends, some of them couldn't see the shift that I made. They were still looking and remembering the Carrie from before she was an entrepreneur, Carrie or the high school Carrie or all these or that Carrie. So I knew that for me to truly make that solidifying change, I needed to shift my environment. And I always said I wanted to live in Denver. So I made the decision to move to Denver. I made it in December 2021 to move to Denver. Got my lease in January. My mom still didn't believe it. She was like, "You ain't moving." I was like, "Yeah, I am. I'm out here. I'm about to be out, Ma." And then I moved March 4th.
And that was a good move for you?
Yes, it was a great move for me. It was overwhelming in the beginning because you never, especially when you're around people a lot and you have escapes, it's easy to never address like all of your changes and all of your shifts because you can like put it into other people. I'm spending time with my niece. I'm working on this. Yes, I've changed, but like there's other stuff happening. And I remember moving here and that first week realizing like, oh, it's really quiet here. And like all of these internal thoughts I need to actually address and deal with. And that was actually one of the catalysts of me dealing with the fact that I really didn't enjoy my business anymore and actually making the decision to tear it down.
Carrie, what problem exists in the world today that you'd like to solve?
I would say the biggest problem that I would love to solve is the need to fit in or the feeling that you have to fit in or you have to fit into this theoretical box. I feel like it's so easy to be like a part of the masses, but realizing if you actually stand out and you put your foot forward that feels right for you, that creates that aligned life that you say that you want, but you don't know how to get there.
What is one valuable lesson you wish you knew before starting your business?
Mm. So one of the things that happened to us when we started our business is that we grew really, really fast. So like literally every month our systems were breaking, our processes were breaking. And I had a conversation with one of our mentors back then. And he said that you have to build your systems to match the business that you want, not the business that you have. And I wish I would have known that at the beginning because it would have saved a lot of tired 20, 17, 19-hour days of me trying to fix the systems, working on client work and all this stuff because I was building the systems for the business that we had, not the business that we wanted.
Becoming Carrie. Talk about becoming.
Becoming Carrie has been really interesting. One of the first things that I had to do, one of my best friends, Solara, she told me, she was like, "Carrie, you have to learn how to find and how to create these empty buckets of space because that's where like excitement and abundance kind of comes in from." And I was like, first I was like, well, I remember getting out my notepad. I was like, so how do you create empty gaps of space? And she was like, "Carrie, you're not supposed to like, you just let it happen." And becoming Carrie was really allowing things to happen and not feeling like I needed to control the situation to go somewhere to start my day. Sunday was a perfect example. I literally went to the park. I knew that me and my friend were going to go to the museum. We went to the museum. We were like, oh, we're hungry. Let's go get sushi. We actually scooted 4 miles like by the river to go get the sushi. We went to the sushi place neither one of us had went to. We told them choose our adventure. And it literally was the perfect day because we just allowed things to happen the way they were supposed to happen. We weren't forcing or creating these experiences. We were letting go of control. And I would say that was the biggest piece of becoming like the Carrie you see today, is letting go of control.
What is the biggest challenge of being an entrepreneur?
I would say the biggest challenge of being an entrepreneur is there's not really validation, especially. So a lot of times I feel like as entrepreneurs, you feel like you're all jacked up about 90% of the time. Like 90% of the time, you're feeling like you're living in hot mess Cityville, and like you might even be the mayor of it. And there's no assessments, there's no quarterly reports to say, hey, you're doing a great job in these places. Here's some areas of improvement. There's none of that. And I feel that because there isn't those validation pieces, sometimes you have to truly trust and believe that you're going in the right direction, or hoping that you have somebody like I have with my community that comes and says, hey, Carrie, I thank you for this, or thank you for putting yourself out there. Because a lot of times you're in it alone and you don't know unless like you trust that you're going the right way.
Carrie, if you conducted this interview, what is the one question you would have asked yourself? I want you to ask the question and answer it.
I think the question would be, why entrepreneurship? And the answer would be, for me, is when I was a senior in high school, I was writing my college essays, and I was really into Ralph Waldo Emerson at this time. And he had a piece of his in his essay called Self-Reliance. It says, every man's education, he arrives at the conviction that envy is ignorance and imitation is suicide. And I remember at that moment, I was like, this is me. This is me. This is the person that I am, and this is the person that I want to be. I want to be my own drum, even if it doesn't make sense in the moment. And why entrepreneurship is because that is the truest definition of beating your own drum, because you never know what you're going to get. You're going to go down these paths. You're going to go through the jungle pieces. You're going to get in the swamps. You're going to have these beautiful mountain moments. You're going to do all of these things, but it's your path, and you literally are the one that gets to choose it each and every day.
We've come to the part of our interview. It's called Rapid Round of Fun. I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and I want you to give me very quick answers. If there's something you desire not to answer, feel free to say pass. Are you ready for the Rapid Round of Fun?
I'm ready.
Your ideal car?
Tesla.
Your favorite comfort food?
Indian food.
Your first job?
What's the name of it? The Avenue.
The last movie you saw?
Wait on Me, a Passion Flicks movie. Wait by Me is it's one of the new Passion Flicks that just came out.
You relax doing what?
Coloring.
Your favorite singer or rapper?
Adele.
Your favorite dance song?
Just Dance by Lady Gaga.
What food you eat every week, no matter what?
What do I eat every week no matter what? I'm over here like, what do I eat every week no matter what? I would have to probably say, so I'm really weird and I do like the old, it's probably sunflower seeds, but I'm on Lent, so it's not sunflower seeds right now. But if I wasn't on Lent, it would be sunflower seeds because I eat that every week no matter what.
Carrie, work out or hit the couch?
Hit the couch. I'm sorry. I'm trying to get that.
Carrie Thomas-Omáur, thank you so much for joining us on Black Entrepreneur Experience Podcast. Before we let you go, share with our audience the best way for them to connect with you and to do business with you, and feel free to leave all your social media handles.
Yes, so you can find me at Branding with Carrie _ on social, Carrie Thomas-Omáur on LinkedIn and Facebook. And if you want to just kind of go and take my quiz, make sure you go to houseofcarrie.com/links.
Thank you, Carrie. That's a wrap.
Thank you.